Hi, I'm Ben Boese, and I'll be talking about Nebraska football for my informative speech for Iowa Western public speaking class. A lot of people, when brought up with the words Husker football, are prideful of the past, and they're also very hopeful of the future. It has one of the best fan bases, if not the best fan base, in college football because of its 5 national championships and its dedication to the program. I think that it's some of the best football to ever be played in college football, and I love this program. Nebraska has historically dominated their opponents due to great coaching, training, and dedication by all 3 of the coaches, players, and trainers. Their opponent, I'll be discussing the teams that Nebraska history had that were very good, the best coaches Nebraska had, and the strength and conditioning program at Nebraska that was one of the best. Nebraska's rich history comes from its national championship teams in 1970, 1971, 1994, 1995, and 1997. The Nebraska team from 1995 could potentially be one of the best teams to ever play in college football history. This team was led by Tommy Frazier, who was arguably one of the best players to ever not win a Heisman Trophy from Nebraska. He was the quarterback. And Grant Wistrom, who according to Data Omaha, he was a defensive lineman and the best defensive lineman in the country that year. And he was only a sophomore, but even though he was only a sophomore, he emerged as one of the leaders for that team. This team went undefeated and won the national championship in 1995. Boyd Epley was the strength and conditioning coach in 1970. He was brought in by Tom Osborne in 1970, who was an assistant coach at the time to head coach Bob Devaney. Bob Devaney won national championships in 1970 and 1971. What did Boyd Epley do? So in 1971, he turned the program around because in 1969, Nebraska went down to Norman, Oklahoma, and played their rivals Oklahoma in a game and got totally destroyed in that game, and it was just humiliating for that team. So Tom Osborne had a long conversation with Bob Devaney and decided to bring in Boyd Epley, who is an up-and-coming strength coach down from Texas, who was a good friend of Tom's at the time. So according to BoydEpley.com, a lot of the people at that time thought that weightlifting could be harmful for the players, not only for their bodies, but it would also make them slower and less athletic, which he knew was obviously the opposite of what we know today and all the players and what they do. Some of his results for the team was after that year in 69 and 70, they emerged as the best team in college football and won the national championship. Then my next slide is about Tom Osborne and the legacy he left at Nebraska. Coaching Nebraska football is you go through the list, it's a lot of good coaches, and Bob Devaney, Tom Osborne, and on the list goes. Tom Osborne was arguably the best coach at Nebraska because of his 3 championships in his tenure. Devaney was probably the second. He had one of the best runs in college football in 1995, 1994, 1995, and 1997. He took over for athletic director when he was done coaching in 2003, and he was athletic director until 2016 when he retired. He was a very good athletic director too. He kept the tradition going as a good football enthusiast and as a good enthusiast for other sports as well at Nebraska. So in conclusion, Nebraska has some of the best football ever to be played in college. I believe that they pioneered the way for other teams in strength and conditioning and in both coaching with Boyd Epley and Tom Osborne. And they're really the reason that this new era of college football is taking over.